Heather here in the NEMA office, welcoming you on this May sunny day. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and also the people that signed up for last April due to an Air France strike, of all things. We had to reschedule, which is always entertaining and fun to think about. But so today's session, I just want to let you know, will be recorded and available on the NEMA website later on this afternoon. You can also catch all of the prior Lunch with NEMAs on the website too if you ever want to go back and review any of them, take a look at them, or maybe laugh at a couple of them because this one has some humor in it. You know, it's stuff that you don't normally think about when you think about grad school and stuff that you wish you probably would have learned. But I'm going to so I want to start off by saying hi and say if you guys can tell me where you're actually dialing in from, that would be awesome so we can see who's on the call today. Lots of people typing there. And if you guys happen to have any questions at all coming up during this Lunch with NEMA, you can just type them in right there, and I will turn around and ask them a question, and hopefully we can answer them. We are all over New England today, which is awesome. And, of course, the NEMA office here. Okay, so we're actually going to start the presentation there. So, Cinnamon, I'm just going to turn it over to you. So if you want to take the reins and go for it.
Great, happy to do so. Thanks for having me. So my name is Cinnamon Catlin Legutko. I'm the president and CEO of the Abbe Museum up in Bar Harbor, Maine. The weather is glorious on Mount Desert Island today, the home of Acadia National Park. My job today is to kind of reveal myself and let you know all the things I wish I'd learned when I was in grad school. I went to the University of Arkansas, which is an anthropology program, museum studies focus, and from that moment of intense training, I went on to become a museum leader. I'm in my third leadership role. Of course, in grad school, you get a lot of hands-on practical. If you work really hard, you can learn a great deal, but it's tough to teach the soft skills, and those really are the skills that rule the day. So this session is to kind of paint those skills, the things you wish you could have learned a little more about. And this is, I will warn you, quite rapid fire. It's in Pechakucha, Pacha style, which is a really rapid, 30-second slide format. And it was originally developed by Nathan Ritchie with the Golden History Museums in Colorado for American Alliance Museums meeting. So I've taken that moment and developed it into 4 topics now for us to discuss. We're going to look at the soft skills required for working with boards, fundraising, working with people, aka your staff, your employees, and also how to stay sane in all of the craziness of museum work. We have some polls built in to kind of give us some breathing space, ask questions, but otherwise we're going to barrel on through, and hopefully we can catch you along the way if there's anything that's unclear or needs a little bit of more description. I'll also state that I am speaking from the perspective of a museum director, but I work with very small museums to now a medium-sized museum, as well as I've done work with large museums, so I'm hoping, and I think you'll find relevance wherever you work in a museum based on what I'm talking about. So to get us going, I want to start with a poll. And Heather's going to run this poll for us. I want to find out who we're talking to in regard to museum work. It's some general categories. I know there's a lot more things that we all do, but I'm looking at administration, collections, education, or other, just to find out who's in the crowd. And while we do that, Heather is going to report back some of those results. But to save time,
it looks like we're leaning towards administration right now.
Okay. All right.
I have everybody reporting, but like 38% administration, 12 collections, 16 education, and 9 is other.
Okay. So administrators rule the day in this session, but fortunately for us, administration is really part of all of our jobs. So I think we definitely are on the relevance track. So let's move to the next slide and get going, because what I've done to take us through is invite some friends. I have to warn you, I'm a fan of pop culture and Hollywood, so you're going to see some familiar faces. Our first topic is how to work with boards, also known as having 12 to 24 bosses. Working with boards is seeing a boss everywhere you turn, and there's no one better to handle that than Tom Hanks, in my opinion. Perfect symbol for this. He demonstrates his talents in all that he does, shows leadership and grace under pressure. He's also seen as a man of the people, and that's what you really have to be if you're going to survive 12 to 24 bosses. First tip, what's the purpose of the board? It's kind of helpful to know this. The board is for oversight of a nonprofit, has fiduciary responsibility. They bring resources to the museum, set policy, and hire the director. Unfortunately, some boards misconstrue this and make our lives hellish. Boards are there to be helpful, not harmful. Why do they serve? A variety of reasons, certainly. There's a real interest and obligation. They're looking to heighten personal visibility sometimes, or even pad a resume. For many, they just want to be part of something. They want to find, so it's up to you to really find out their motivation, and it will help you engage them. But always, always, always remember that they are volunteers. It's something I lose sight of all the time. It sounds really simple, but easily forgotten. They are giving their precious time and resources for the betterment of the organization. So it's important to not only recognize them and need them to be board members, but to recognize them as volunteers and scale your expectations accordingly and make their experience meaningful. But sometimes it gets bad. It can get really dark. And I would say that 9 out of 10 times this is because the board and the director relationship isn't structured correctly. Sometimes it can be incorrectly structured as a parent-child relationship. And I have parents, you have parents. You don't really need parents as a board, but sometimes they think that way when they're thinking about oversight. And it creates unrealistic expectations. And so we really want to make sure that their roles are understood. But also know that it's a partnership. And as the director, you know more about the organization than any board member ever will. You've got the day-to-day understood, a vision, you have the experience and talents, and that's why they hired you. They certainly have expertise, but they should use it as a partner, not as a micromanager. And knowing that communication is critical will help you. It ensures the partnership, it keeps people informed. You can keep them informed through regular updates, by email, certainly board packets are robust forms of communication, but make sure you're talking to them in between meetings. They're thinking about you all the time and that you're helping them become experts about the museum. You'll show them that you have it all under control, build trust, and they'll be stronger advocates, which is what we all want. Well, what happens when a line is crossed? Don't cry. You've got this. I'll admit I've cried a few times. I'm not going to lie, but maybe a board member just doesn't realize what they're doing because they've got their roles misunderstood. And sometimes a board member thinks they can instruct a staff member to do specific work, or maybe think about ask them to do work that's against your wishes. It happens when you're working in a smaller organization. So it's important for you to talk to your staff and tell them to report this to you, and then work with the board chair to help the offending board member. The chair must be your best ally. And then you have the role of being their compass. Board members really need your help. Don't assume they know how to behave as good trustees. They need development, professional development, just like you do. So make sure you build in learning opportunities. Make them active learners, and you will survive. Just know, sadly, that they won't fundraise. I know this is how you'll feel when you realize it. You may get lucky, though, and inherit an awesome fundraising board. I've yet to find the perfect one, but I know that I have to carry the torch and rope them in as much as I can, and don't leave it for them to do because they get done. They also are in your donor pool, so don't forget to ask them. And eventually they will catch up and be the fundraisers you need them to be. Also, remember to be diplomatic. Remember to keep your cool during stressful meetings and interactions. Your board members are not always going to make you happy. Be respectful of those different perspectives. It's really invigorating and educational to hear the difference. Listen to their ideas, facilitate difficult conversations, and if you need to have a difficult meeting with a trustee, have your chair with you. Don't go in alone. And be part of recruitment. Work with the governance committee to identify talents and the skills you need most. You need people who make the director a strong leader. Know who you're looking for and look for them all year long. And be an informant when officers are decided. Your board chair needs to complement your style. Realistic expectations are always needed. This is from both directions. Working with the board chair to develop the evaluation process for you as a director and for the board is required. Partners, true partners, will evaluate each other and set expectations for the future. Make sure the board has their own evaluation process, either professionally administered or informally administered, or at least a conversation. They need to be thinking about their roles as much as they're thinking about yours. And then give them the tools to succeed. Clearly written board reports, well-organized board packets provided well in advance and predictably in advance for meeting. And a careful orientation of new board members is required. All of these things will let them help you do your good work. And consider, if you can, an online board resource with post readings, policies, updates. We have a hidden website that's just fantastic, and I can share anything and everything with them, and it's up to them to continue their learning that way. But also stand your ground. When it gets tough, read the situation and know what your role is and the board's role. Do something each year to develop your leadership skills so you're strong and effective. If you know that there's an issue that pushes a button, whether in a board member or for yourself, prepare for it and have your calm and measured response at the ready. And also know when to be quiet. This is one of the biggest lessons I learned in this job. Diplomacy is important, but also there's times where you just need to be quiet and let the board figure it out, especially when tensions are running high. It's important to read the room, and if it's something the board needs to figure out, if you jump in the middle of it, you've made it worse. Sometimes there's things they need to wrestle over, and being quiet at key moments is the same as standing your ground. And of course, professionalism always wins the day. It always wins. If it's being compromised, then you know you need to move on, and that's okay. If you find that you just can't keep your cool, something else is going on. But more often than not, if you keep the board inspired, informed, and engaged, you'll break the code and lead the museum to fulfill its mission and goals. And if you can, along the way, become award-winning. Make sure your community knows how strong your board is, and your donors need to know it as well. It's inspiring to see everyone working together and banking successes. Try to win some awards, get credit for greatness. I am constantly complimenting my boards when I introduce them in public. I'm constantly lifting to making sure everybody knows it's a strong partnership. And while you're at it, nurture your leadership style. Again, take care of yourself and learn and know who you are. Attend conferences, take classes, go to leadership training, and completely immerse yourself. Form a leadership network and get together regularly and talk it over. When you are strong, you survive. And make it social. Have fun. Make a part of your board agenda social if you can. Be a party after the meeting. Cocktail party. I've heard that happens. We go out to dinner together after our board meetings. And then during board retreats, make sure you have time built in for socializing. You have a lot of work to do as a nonprofit museum, and it'd be great to know the people you're working with and have fun along the way. So those are my tips for working with boards. We have another poll here. What's your challenge working with your board? We'll take a minute to respond, and Heather will let us know how the results play out. Hopefully you're keeping up with my pace. I know it's fast, but we'll get there. All right. Any early results yet?
So it's starting to look like they don't understand their role. And then
Don't understand
coming in, they don't fundraise. But by and far,
Yep.
3% is they don't understand their role.
It's one of these great myths in American society why board members don't understand role, and I would argue it's always because they haven't taken time for personal learning. There's so many things written about it, but there's so many assumptions about power and control that I think gets in the way. So you can be part of their opportunity to learn with your soft skills. All right.
Okay.
Well, let's head into topic 2. All right. There's some other friends we're inviting. How to raise money without magic, also known as any muggle can raise funds. And if you aren't a Potter file, I'll confess I might have a hard time talking to you in person. I'm quite the Potter fan. If you've only seen the movies, well, I do have some myths about that. But regardless, fundraising is simpler than you think, and any muggle can do it. It just takes positive energy, the ability to share your personality, and demonstrate diligence and fearlessness. You have to do it. There's no choice. Fundraising has to. So get used to the idea. You may not like it, but maybe you could try. You may be surrounded by board members who won't do it. You're not alone. Sadly, the norm, as I've indicated earlier, but you can carry the torch until you have a board that can help you. So be part of the board recruitment process. And be prepared. Before you ever get to the ask, you have a lot of preparation to do. Make sure you have a good cause. People don't often give just because it's a good cause. In this competitive world, there are tons of people with good causes. So do your homework. Find a project for your donor. Make sure you report the impact of the gift to the donors. And never underestimate personal relationships. People give to people. You may have a compelling mission, but it's the people who have the opportunity to bring resources, volunteers, and their network, and open doors to a new donor. Use them well. And how we ask varies. You can do it directly by mail or face-to-face. Direct mail is for membership and annual fund. That works. But you're just getting started best way and asking for a specific amount for a specific thing. It's one thing to have a sit down and ask and not have specifics. You fail if you do that. Be prepared. And know your prospects. Do as much reconnaissance as possible before asking. Know individuals and corporations and connect to what matters to them. Do they have a passion for education? Ask them to fund your educational program. Are they a collector? Ask them to donate to a friend of. And be sure to develop your small talk. This is hard for a lot of people, but it really counts. Stewardship of a donor or a new ask, don't forget to be human. Read the cues and work in some small talk so they can learn about you and you can demonstrate why you care and why you're doing the job you're doing. And at all costs, avoid foot and mouth disease. Don't ask something inappropriate. Don't talk politics. Don't talk religion. Leave it out. Develop your small talk. If you have to talk about the weather, fine. But at least the small talk's there. Have some standby topics, especially if it runs dry. A friend of mine who's a library director always asks about the last book someone has read. You can also ask what's the last museum you went to and see where it goes, and try to avoid those awkward silences. But be comfortable with meaningful pauses so people have time to think. Be sure to tell your story. Fundraising is just you telling a story and convincing the other person to join you in it. But believe in your story first. Make sure you're feeling good about your work before entering the room. If you're burnt out, it will show. And be a good investment. Folks aren't interested in giving money to pay the bills. Some will, but not enough money. It's never enough money to pay the bills. It's not very sexy, if you will, for a donor. Donors want to be part of a winning team, and it's a good investment. Success breeds success and draws in more donors. And just keep in mind, if they say no, it's actually a maybe in fundraising. After you told your story, directly asking them, will you help the XYZ Museum today by making a gift of $5,000 to support our teacher training program? They'll say yes, because the hardest part is just getting in the room. It's 85% of your trouble. But if they say no, ask when you can call again, because it's a maybe. They're interested. They let you in the room. You probably just didn't ask for the right thing, and you can ask them what you could come back and talk about. Talking to the super rich can be odd. Just keep that in mind. It's something I've learned the hard way. It can be very odd. Don't worry. It's about them. It's not about you. You may find there'll be very little small talk you can inject. They may have been raised to be philanthropists, so it's all a drill. They have a process by which they give away money, and you have to jump through the hoops. But they also may not be very forthcoming with personal info. It's not you, it's them. They have to protect their privacy. And to learn a little bit more about working with the super rich, there's this great blog called The Billionaire's Butler. Just read that through, and you'll figure out why there's some awkwardness at times when you're talking to folks with great capacity. When you meet with them, make sure you leave something behind. You have prepared materials to leave with them, a nice folder with a case statement and other materials that dig deeper into the museum impact. Happy images of happy people, your business card, but don't overdo it. You need to make them curious, but not overwhelmed. And show gratitude in many forms. Be grateful during your meetings. Follow up with a handwritten note. Maybe a formal receipt may be required based on the size of the gift. And find time to connect with donors when you're not asking for money. That can be the trickiest part. Give them an update over coffee, send a report by mail or email, just as you might do for grants to show impact. The donor has made a choice. It's not their obligation, so gratitude is critical. And honor all gifts. The $10 donor is just as important as the $1,000 donor. You just thank them in different ways. All of these gifts come together to make your job possible. You never know capacity really, and don't assume anything about a donor. And plus, a $10 gift for a certain person may have been a sacrifice to them. So the impact is so much greater. Be sure to keep your promises. Once you get the gift, do what you promised. You have to do it, even if you run aground on the project. One broken promise is more destructive than you can ever imagine. It has a radiant effect. So be sure to ask for the right things. If scope changes, don't worry. Just communicate with the donors and keep them going and keep them informed. And bring in new people along the way. A good donor mix is a combo of ages and backgrounds. If your entire donor pool is over 55, you're doomed. Start doing programs and exhibits that connect with broader audiences. Be seen in the community and meet people every chance you get, because you'll get to turn them into donors, I promise. Really big gifts are always easier. Getting a $25,000 gift is so much easier than gathering $50 gifts for the same project. You need the smaller gifts, yes, but it takes a lot of time. The big ask only requires a phone call or an email to set up an appointment and prepare a folder of info and get your suit on. That's about it. You've done all of that good stewardship and getting to know people, and you've identified a good match. It's really easy to make the big ask. Grants will only buy you time, so be forewarned. Yes, they're super for special projects, capacity building grants, but they can only take you so far. Foundations, grant makers grow weary of your work if you're not building yourself along the way. They can't make you sustainable, and time will run out. You must have charitable gifts along with your revenue mix. Endowment, diversified income truly is what equals sustainability. And it's important to know that development is everyone's job, especially at the staff level. Everyone helps with this work. Each person who enters the museum should be treated like a donor. Kindness and responsiveness is key. One of the great pieces of advice I got from John and Anita Durrell, who are museum consultants, is they put that duty, that development is everyone's job, in all job descriptions. And we've adopted that, and we've shown our team the way for contributing to fundraising opportunities. And here too, have fun. Fundraising is a blast. I enjoy it. There's a rush when you get the appointment, and then excitement about making your case because you really believe in what you're doing. And it's a thrill to convince others. So it's important to have fun in the process. So we're now with another poll asking you, when it comes to fearless fundraising, what holds you back? What is tripping you up? What are your fears? Or maybe you don't need the money, which is unlikely. Let us know what you think. Do we have any results in yet? Oh, you like the Harry Potter?
They're still coming. So yeah, that was a good one. So we're about tie with, I don't know how it's done, and I'm waiting for my board to get going. So it looks like getting going is pulling ahead. 11% is I don't know how to make the case for my museum.
Hopefully nobody's answered we don't need money. So the good news is that...
No, thankfully no one has said that one yet. So no, that one definitely is 0. So,
so the good
news
is...
like definitely I'm waiting for my board to get going is 25 to 18 is how to get it done. So we'll end
hopefully
that
everybody... Okay, great. Hopefully everybody sees the overlap then between what I talked about a minute ago, working with boards and fundraising, that they can go hand in hand. When boards understand their role and you've activated them in their good work, it's only up to you to get out of the way and let them go, go, go. But not every board member is going to roll at the same pace, and that's okay. You can help them come along based on their needs and interests. So let's keep building on this. How to work with your staff. So this section is called How to Work with People, also known as Don't Be Michael Scott. Some people would debate that he's the worst manager. Some people would debate he's the best manager in the world. But I think can help us think this through a little bit about how to work with your team. I'm not offering legal advice. I am offering advice that will hopefully help you remain productive in the workplace and will help you keep your humanity intact, because that's really what we all need. It's important to build a team, have a team ethic. I can't urge this enough. Very few of us work in an environment where we only wear one hat. We need to rely on each other as teammates. Many people, unfortunately, aren't able to be team members. It's tough for them. So figuring that out in the hiring process is key. You can certainly bring in staff development opportunities to develop people as the best team members possible. And I highly recommend 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni if you need some insights about teams in the workplace. And there's a horde of books out there and articles about teamwork, but this one's a great one to get you started. You need to hire based on needs that are strategically determined. This requires that you know exactly who you have on your team. You have to take the time to know folks and observe their work. When you have a vacancy, think about what you really need and what skills you're looking for, and let that determine the position you're posting. Be sure to fund professional development. I cannot emphasize this enough. It's always the first thing cut when it should be the last during tough times. Staff always needs the opportunity to get out there, learn new things, hear from colleagues, and so on. And if times are really lean, pay for a series of webinars or encourage staff to go network with local professionals over breakfast or lunch, or bring in a trainer to work with a team. Investing in the staff promotes confidence and loyalty. Develop leaders. Create leaders in your staff team and be a leader of leaders. You receive the benefits of the leadership training while they are with you, and you develop loyalty in the staff member. Be sure to use we to describe work. Use I when you're taking on work. Are you aware of how you use I and we? Maybe it's something you don't think as much about. We always sound better when planning work, inspiring others. We always sounds better when planning work, inspiring others during impact. And when you're stepping up to the plate to take on a task, I needs to ring loud and clear. I will lead this event. I will call the donor and set up an appointment. And it certainly goes without saying, but you should make sure you follow through when you use the I words. Also, be real and accessible. Show your human side. People respond to the real you always. If you're in management, it's exhausting to keep up a persona at work and then go home and be yourself. Just do your personal work, understand who you are as an individual, and be the best human you can be. Also, use humor, be funny whenever possible. I seriously don't know why people take themselves so seriously. It's okay to be hilarious in meetings in the office. Just keep it in check. Don't be too blue with your humor, and make sure it's not at the expense of a teammate. It's always a quick way to diffuse tension and to promote camaraderie. Watch out for too many inside jokes, though. You don't want to exclude people. Be sure to introduce big ideas. Find ways to stretch your mind and others. Get out of the box. Encourage the imagination. At the Abbe, we look at other sectors for big ideas. Many of us go to TEDx events, and we do that each year to turn up big ideas. And we find ourselves in new, exciting places, learning and learning, learning. Know the laws, of course. If you're in management and you have direct reports, get thee to some HR training. Make sure someone on the team is on top of all of the laws. And never miss a coaching or mentoring opportunity. As you create or contribute to a positive and supportive workplace, you will attract great staff members who want to develop as professionals, perhaps as leaders. If you are conscious of coaching or mentoring opportunities, you'll observe how your team is developing and will create loyalty to the organization and to each other. Be sure to always keep your cool, just like you do with your board. I know it's really hard to do sometimes. It's really hard for me. But if you overreact, you'll either cause others to overreact or worse, panic, and then you're miles away from the solution. Which leads me to being solution-oriented. It's quite frankly my top desired capability of a staff person. In any situation, think about the solution as you're considering the problem. The more solutions, the better. I firmly believe you can never have too many. And have empathy. It's important to remember that your colleagues are people with feelings, with personal lives, with goals and dreams. Yes, I have to say that aloud sometimes. And sometimes a staff member may be dealing with tough stuff, a sick family member, loss, personal illness, divorce, and they may need some time off or simple understanding so that they can be the best employee or teammate possible. Nurturing the whole person makes for a positive work environment for everyone. And be aware. Pay attention how people work best together, who clashes, who meshes, and build work teams accordingly. Yes, folks are supposed to work together, but if you're aware of how people work best, you'll get the best out of everyone. And hire people different from you. When you interview folks, it's really easy, if you're lucky, to have a rapport with a candidate. Be sure to assess before extending an offer to make sure that you're not hiring another one of you. You need to hire outside of your skill set at times to make sure you have the best bench strength you can gather. When it gets heated, take a walk. Whenever you get hot under the collar, you're seeing red, you just want to scream, take a walk around the block before confronting the issue, which you have to do. Also, if a decision is needed and anger is clouding your vision, take a walk to clear your head, or at least give yourself 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Figure out what your magic buffer is. Develop your personal style for critical and difficult conversations. We've all had to approach someone and have a difficult conversation. Some of us avoid it at all costs, but it's important to dive right in and spend some time and training dollars to develop your management style so that these tense times are productive and have the result you're looking for. Take a vacation. Hold it sacred. Long before you lose your mind, schedule a vacation. Get away. Don't check email. Put someone else in charge if you can and relax. And keep in mind, traveling to see family isn't always a vacation. If you need to take a cruise, and make sure everybody else does this on your team as well. And own your vision. You can't realize something you don't own. Develop a vision of how the organization needs to move. Think about it, write about it, talk about it, own it. You can't realize the vision if you don't own it. So let's take a moment and do another poll and ask the question, what makes you a better manager?
Cinnamon, I wanted to follow up on the team member book that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Was it the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team? Okay, all right. Just wanted to confirm.
That's correct. Patrick Lencioni. And I've read so many things since I first read that back in 2009, 2010, and it still is a book I go back to over and over again. All right, so we have some answers coming in, Heather.
Okay, so what makes you a better manager? People are awesome. It's 39%. Being a manager is the best match. Personality is 16%, and I've been burned is 10%. And no one management schmanagement.
Well, good. It sounds like we have some positive people who are thinking about the whole person at all times, and that's really excellent. 'Cause people are awesome. You just have to get them in the right place, and you have to check yourself before you wreck yourself. I say that all the time about either in my head or aloud, because it's not, management is not easy. All right.
No, it's not. Oh, so it definitely is. People are awesome, which is always good to hear.
Right on. That's good to hear. Faith in humanity is restored. All right. Let's go to our fourth, I believe, and final section, and we will have time at the end for questions and feedback for sure. All right. Here's our friend, Nafay, to tell us how to keep it sane or try not to kill anybody, okay? So I think Tina Fey is a good mascot for sanity. She's a highly accomplished comic, writer, producer, actor, mom, wife, you name it. And through her characters, she can show us the importance of keeping your sanity for work and for home. And it's important to note that I stress work and home. Self-awareness is key. Do your personal work and find out where your strengths and weaknesses are. It can be as simple as finding out how best you work with numbers. For me, I know that I understand numbers well, but I have to give myself time and space to work through them, and I can explain numbers best through words. I've had a colleague in the past who's exactly the opposite. He lives and breathes numbers. He only thinks with numbers. But we were able to get to an understanding where I could help him with words while he helped me with numbers, and we could give each other space to work through it. And that awareness has been developed through training, professional development, and personal commitment. Self-awareness means personal assessment, developing personal strength. I've done leadership assessments, including 360s, readings. I seek feedback. I'm also part of a roundtable that I go to 3 times a year to really retreat and think about what I'm doing as a leader and what I can change and improve. improve. And the two things that I know I always have to work on, believe it or not, is to reduce drama whenever possible and to remember to be human. That's my big self-awareness tip. Yours might be different, but you won't know it unless you do the assessment. Be sure to document the moving parts when you want to keep sane. Make lists every day. Have a great attitude, or at least pretend to. And having a great attitude is great for the big picture. And when it comes down to the minutes and hours each day that can drag on like torture, I've found I need to sometimes have a more hands-on approach. And lists will help you figure out where you need to do that work and where you don't. It will make such a difference when you start making lists for everyone and holding each other accountable. You can do that at a high level or a detail level, but definitely need to make sure you're not micromanaging in that process. Live your vision. I've talked about vision for an organization, but what about a vision for your personal life? This certainly helps with work-life balance and keeps you on track. And be sure to share that vision with your family, your significant other, whoever it is that you surround yourself with in life. Share it with them so they can help you realize it and help you check it. Find mental escapes throughout the day. If you don't have a happy place that you mentally escape to when times are rough, get one. I have a few places I visit over and over again. I recently had the chance to be in France, and now one of my happy places is driving on this beautiful road in Normandy surrounded by yellow fields. Some other places that I've gone to in my head is the Roman pool at Hearst Castle in California. I think that's the most gorgeous pool in the world. And it's where Cary Grant liked to swim. So you can just retreat and relax. I think it's a form of meditation, and it can really help you quiet your mind when it gets crazy. And learn when to be still. There are times when you want to dive in, get in the thick of it, and get messy. But sometimes it's not your drama, so you need to keep still and don't take on other folks' drama. I've continued this in negotiations, staff meetings. You don't have to solve it all. Make the others solve around you, and it creates stronger resolution and stronger teams. Seek and rely on training. You've heard the theme of professional development hopefully by now. It really matters. Pay attention to your learning. Keep learning. I have revisited my leadership training over and over again. I reach out to classmates and cohorts constantly to get feedback and ideas. I've followed up on training here at the local level as well as national level to really understand leadership in Maine as opposed to leadership in museum work. And as I mentioned earlier, I now do these roundtables to help me develop my leadership style. But if you don't have those resources, don't let that be an excuse. You can pick up a book, you can read an online article, create a schedule for independent learning, and find a way to keep on track so that you give time to yourself. And stoke your passion. It's important to seek out moments that remind you why you're doing this work. Find the things that give you chills and inspire you to be a museum rock star. And nurture that museum geek, because it's also your force. It's what keeps you going. And here's a big tip that a lot of people don't think about. You got to keep your monkeys in check. It's from a classic article from the Harvard Business Review called Who's Got the Monkey, published in the 70s. It's about keeping your monkeys off your back at the end of the day. So have you ever, for example, been walking down the hall and one of your colleagues comes up and says, "Hey, I've got a problem and I need some help." And then you say, "Well, let me think about it. Let me take this with me and mull it over." Well, you've just taken their monkey and you've brought it back to your office. And if you're in leadership, if you're a manager, you're probably doing that multiple times during the day. So at the end of the day, when everybody's going home at 5 o'clock, whenever quitting time is, you're sitting there in your office with everybody else's problems to work out, and you can't go home because you didn't solve them. So instead, you have to create those moments where when they say, "We've got a problem, I need some help," put it back on them to say, "How might we solve this? How might you solve this?" Give them a deadline to come back with a solution. You can help them with ideas. You can inspire them, but don't take that monkey off of their shoulder and put it on your back. It's absolutely critical. And one of the things I always have to remind myself of, too, when I'm even talking is to squash shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I think you probably know people like trustees, maybe volunteers, who come in and say, "You know what you should do?" Or "Could you do this for me?" Or "Would you ask them to do this?" Those need to flow out of you as a leader and not to you. It's kind of akin to the monkey deal. You'll end up with a boatload of ideas, some good and bad, that you can't address. I remember once someone came to me with a should, and I snapped right back with shoulda, coulda, woulda. That's just where my breaking point was on that day, and it didn't help the situation. People are usually just trying to help, but putting it back on them will mitigate the drama and create a more productive place. And also, there are no more profound words than the Rolling Stones, where you can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. And that thinking will calm you when those shoulda, coulda, wouldas come in. Especially after a big event when everybody's telling you all the ideas and it was a huge success. But they come in, well, you should do this next time, or this could have been better this next time. It really can be a damper on the excitement of the event. So make sure you find a productive place when the shoulda, coulda, wouldas come in. Here too, humor, it's important. Be funny, or at least hang out with funny people. If you're not feeling very funny, maybe you can watch something funny online or read something humorous. It's a great release. You can ease others' tensions with funny. And if you're not funny, make sure you know that. There's nothing worse than someone who thinks they are funny and they're not. You can nurture in others. And maybe at night, if you're really having a tough go of it, don't pick that drama or that crime series. Maybe watch comedy to relieve some stress or some stand-up. It really can help. And have empathy, which is another thing I hope you've picked up on. You have all these frustrations that happen to you, and everybody you encounter during your work day can really drag you down. Whether it's a rude visitor to the museum, or a colleague who's picking on you, or someone's just actually worried about their personal life, so it's become toxic in the workplace. Try to have empathy for what's going on, and try to dig deeper and have a conversation with the person to find out really what's going on, so that you can be that person that showed them empathy and help them move along with their day in a much more positive light. Another thing, though, if you can't get the humor, if you can't find the empathetic place, if you can't make all the tools work, it's okay to tune out. Just simply limit your exposure to the drama, close your door if you have to, close your mind, and then take time to figure out how the process can be rebooted. I've really found that the older I get, the better I am at tuning out at night. I used to take work home all the time, which is, of course, a toxic way to work. I just don't do it anymore. I enjoy my evenings. I've just learned how to tune out and not even think about work at nighttime, unless, of course, there's emergencies or a huge deadline. But it's a mind skill you can develop. And perfect the art of the blow-off. Don't get sucked into conversations with irritating coworkers. If someone walks up to you to get a rise out of you, just say, hey, I'll have to get back to you later. See you later. And pull yourself out of the conversation. And really try to break the bad mood cycle. Good moods at work are contagious, but so are bad moods. And it's really critical to recognize that and not internalize what's happening with a colleague. Either move away to break the energy or dig in and have that conversation to prevent the negativity. And certainly, closing the door at the end of the day is critical. Don't leave issues unresolved. If you've made a mistake or something's not getting done, you have to create time. So closing that door is important. And as people are going home for the day, understand that your door is closed and you're getting work done will remind them of what they left on your plate, and that maybe the next day they can do it differently and approach the next day as a new chance to shine with a clean slate. And honestly, what do you do if your workplace is full-blown toxic? Probably not an ideal situation to just pull out and start your own group. You could create a support group at the staff level, but do it outside of the office. Really talk through what's really upsetting you and create 10 solutions together with colleagues who are sensing the tension and figure out a way to speak with your colleagues. I had a former colleague who could not approach any tough conversation. She would dodge it. She would hide from it. She couldn't handle what I call, and Lencioni calls, productive conflict. So she would just let it frustrate her and fester inside of her, so that when she got toxic, she would blow up. And there's just no point in that. To avoid the conflict is only taking it on yourself. So create strategies, work with someone trusted to help you talk through it and overcome it so that you can affect the change from toxic to productive in the workplace. And find an outlet. I can't stress this enough. When things at work are tough, find something to do after work every single day. The biggest mistake you can make is to drag yourself home exhausted, pour a glass of wine, and just dwell in how tough the day was, and dwelling on how miserable your life has become. It's tough, I know. I enjoy the wine. I really do. But sometimes if you're seeing a pattern every day after work to get yourself out of it, then maybe it's a hobby you need to do. I've tried hobbies for years. It's not my gift. I even tried knitting. It's not my gift. But don't give up. You keep trying. You keep trying. What my hobby has become anymore is creating spaces with friends. I've in multiple book groups. I'm in a gym group. I find ways to have structured time with people I don't work with and have some kind of content in the middle of it to keep us engaged. That works for me. You have to find out what works for you and get that outlet. And stay positive, even if you have to fake it sometimes. And it might be the most difficult step in the process, but it's also one of the most important. If you've ever had the opportunity to hang around someone who just can't do this, you found that you become pessimistic in the process. But the same thing can happen when you're positive. If you keep your chin up, there's just no room for the toxicity and the pessimistic behavior. Be joyful, and it's a word I use a lot. I use it when I describe how our board works with us, how our staff works together. I think about joy a lot, and I even ask it in interviews. What is it that helps you become joyful? And what makes you joyful? It's great character to dig into and understand. And then remember always who you are. Just a step away from Tina Fey and all my other Hollywood friends. And show you who matters to me, my husband and my son, and remember what order in which you prize those people in your life. To me, it's mother first. For my husband, it's wife second, but it all works together. And then third is museum professional. It's important for you to have that in check at all times because your staff get off of you when they make decisions and make the same bad decisions. So if you have your life in balance, everyone else has that opportunity too. Before we wrap up, we have one more poll to find out how you're feeling. Heather can run this for you here too. A couple of choices. Hopefully you're feeling pretty good. If you're feeling stressed out.
By the way, my coworkers are laughing right now, so if this is anything about your poll answers, they're in there laughing. So.
Yeah. Hopefully it's you're not without feeling. But
well, actually, the people are answering that one.
Oh, no, get some friends, get some colleagues to work with you, create a support group. It's okay.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, your presentation's always kind of like a little pep talk. So, definitely one of those things that you kind of want to go back to is like, listening to this presentation again is definitely, makes you feel better too. So
That's
it looks
good.
like 28% are saying, I've got this, 4% are totally stressed out, and 22% are very mellow, thanks, and 6% are no feelings at all.
So it sounds like many of us are feeling pretty confident. Some of us might be wildly enthusiastic about it, but also quite mellow, and that's good too. I think if you find that you're really stressed out or you've lost all feeling, it's time to assess and do that personal work and find out what's doing it, because honestly, if your organization is doing it to you, your organization does not deserve you, and it's time to think about another way to make yourself whole. So I want to just move to the last image and open it up for questions and just a quick summary statement to say that hopefully you saw some themes. You saw some recommendations around professional development, considering the whole self, setting realistic expectations, and being diplomatic. Some of those themes thread throughout, and these aren't the skills you learn in a classroom. They're the skills you learn when you really do professional development and personal work, and I cannot emphasize it enough. And I think we all run into trouble when we stop learning, and keeping that in mind every day of the job, every year, every moment you make a commitment to your organization and to yourself that you're going to make time for learning, you'll win the day. Of course, I have to finish with the Harry Potter photo and my sweet family, yet again, reminding me that I have my priorities set, and I hope you're doing that work as well. So we have just a few minutes left, and I'm happy to answer questions. And maybe there's some that bubbled up earlier too that, Heather, you can seed a little bit. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I'm here to be available.
It was mainly about some of the references, points that you made and stuff like that. So I think Scarlett jumped in and gave that information.
Great.
But no, it's like your presentation's always one of those things that you kind of want to think about again, go through, and just, I don't know. For me, I find it somewhat inspirational. So I don't know about anybody else, but.
Well, you're kind, and it's a good reminder for me too as I read through this to think, am I doing that right now? So I will be doing the same afterwards, kind of checking in with my to-do list of activity and make sure that I feel really good about our team. We've just gone through a lot of staff transition here, and it's important to take those moments and say, okay, what are the expectations of how we work, and what are the soft skills that the people coming into this new environment maybe don't have yet, and that I could nurture and remind them of. So it's important in transitions to not lose sight of that too. Let's see, I see a question that just came in.
That's actually a really important question from Anne. Do you have any recommended sources to share with trustees for defining board roles?
We used to buy for our board the Scramstad book about boards, and it's not in print anymore. But I wanted to say the brand new books, they just came out from Roman and Littlefield. Laura Roberts is one of the co-authors. There's 3 or 4 books about trustee work, and I've had a chance to read a couple of those books, and they're amazing. I don't know if you guys can pull up that link or if you know what book series I'm talking about that just came out.
Yeah, she just released, I know we have 2 copies here in the office that Laura was doing, but I think they're through BoardSource.
Yeah.
So that's another good source for information is BoardSource for trustee roles and stuff like that.
What I liked about these books that she's worked on, they're short and sweet. They're not these huge tomes that you can't get anybody to read. They're really accessible.
Yep.
All right. Looks like we have a...
So any tips if you've been the person helping to solve other people's problems and now turning a new leaf and backing off those requests without disappointing colleagues?
Well, good question. So you're talking about the person who's always the one that has the advice, and the person asking the advice maybe hasn't taken flight and taken their own responsibility. I am really comfortable telling people that they need to talk to a professional. If folks are not able to really balance what their responsibilities are and the burdens they're placing on others, it's important that you know, as the person who's being sought for counsel, what your boundaries are. But it's also important for you to feel comfortable to say, hey, I really think you should talk to a counselor. Hey, maybe if there's somebody that's involved with a church community, maybe they could talk to their religious leader. There's somebody else in their life they can maybe get better answers from if you are being leaned on too heavily, because it's not your job to be their life coach. It is your job to be a responsible co-worker and leader. We have a lot of support here for people who need counseling. We, in fact, fund some of it. We make sure people have time to go to counseling and it's not taking away from their vacation or time off. They're allowed to go do that on our time within reason, of course, but it's been a really helpful mindset to allow people to do that.
Okay, and then just to mention, Scarlett actually typed in her suggestions. So if you scroll up, you should see them there. So this is another one. Any tips on how to manage friendships within a team that are stronger than others that can lead to solutions, work being done outside of the office?
That is so tough, and I have a hard time with it. I live in a very small community on an island off the coast of Maine with a full-time staff staff of 7. So when I leave work, I'm going to see my colleagues, my direct reports at the grocery store. I'm going to see them everywhere. And so what I've realized is that friendships are okay, certainly in the workplace, but it doesn't need to happen anywhere else than in the workplace. You can develop trust in each other. You can deepen a friendship. There are people on staff that are really good friends, and they're not going to be friends with me at the same level, and that's fine. I don't need that. It's not a good, healthy way to think about your workplace relationships. But if let's say 2 staffers are going out every night and grabbing dinner and they're solving the world's problems for the Abbe Museum, they don't need to be doing that. It's in the moment you can catch wind of it, have a conversation, and find out what it is that they're lacking in the workplace. Maybe they're not getting the time to have big picture thinking time. A lot of people build that into the workplace where you've got a place where you can think and be innovative. We try to do monthly luncheons where we talk about difficult topics and have a place to do readings and think it over. So create space for that to happen in the workplace. But people are going to be friends, and that's fine. Just know that you have your expectations as a leader in check. All right.
The other one's just more of the follow-up from the presentation about bullet point topics, but I think most of yours is just more notes. And it looks like Meg and Scarlett are sharing the Laura Roberts books that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, those are really cool.
I do have some people typing. Okay, so do you guys have any last-minute questions while we are still online? Okay, guess we could start wrapping up then. So
All right.
Thank you so much for sharing this presentation again, because I know you gave it a couple years ago, and it's always a pleasure to hear it again. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, today's session was recorded along with prior Lunch with NEMAs, and they are available on the NEMA website under the Lunch with NEMA section if you ever need to go back and re-listen to one or maybe share it with a colleague. This one's definitely a good one to share. I want to say thank you again, and also make sure to join us next month. We're actually going to be talking about museum safety, the question that came up a couple months ago for us during a meeting, and we're actually redoing our first ever Lunch with NEMA with Austin Sharp at the Addison Gallery up at Phillips Academy. So it's always a timely topic there. And Cinnamon, so thank you again for giving this wonderful presentation, and hope to see you all at a future Lunch with NEMA or an in-person workshop or our conference in Stamford, Connecticut in November. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.